The RSL has rejected the prospect of expanding Anzac Day commemorations to include Aborigines killed by early white settlers. The idea was raised in a survey sent out by the Premier's Department to gauge whether it's time to change decades of tradition.
It was a hot topic at the annual anniversary service at Ballarat's National POW Memorial. Should Aborigines killed by colonial white settlers be commemorated in the same way as Australia's war dead on Anzac Day?
You can't rewrite history. What happened has happened.
Anyone that is involved with the development of our country, that would be not unreasonable.
The RSL says Anzac Day is for those who died in the service of their nation. This is a colonial issue.
Before 1901, we were individual states, and if anybody, the POMs ought to get involved and try and sort that out.
Aretha Brown, who's represented Indigenous Australians at Gallipoli commemorations, says Aborigines killed by white settlers were defending their nation.
Of course it should be recognised. You know, it goes without saying. I don't even know why it's a question, really. You know, it's a war within itself, and so, yeah, I think it should be recognised.
The proposal came as a surprise to Labor's federal leader.
I'm not aware of any plans to change Anzac Day. Anzac Day is about commemorating the fallen in the wars that Australia's participated in. It's not even on my radar.
While the Foreign Minister accused the Victorian Premier of using Anzac Day to spark an ideological war.
Daniel Andrews would be better off spending his time focusing on delivering basic services to the people of Victoria, like cheap, reliable electricity for a start.
But after a day of furore, almost certainly nothing will change. The government says feedback from commemorative committees and veterans groups has effectively kiboshed the idea.
Unless we get the tick off from those organisations, we won't proceed with it. I can categorically say no changes.
Dean Felton, 7 News.
Debate has erupted over whether Aboriginals killed by white settlers should be recognised on Anzac Day. The idea has been opposed by the RSL, which says it could take attention away from Australians who served in other major conflicts. Kieran Jones has more.
Potential changes to Anzac Day are already being strongly opposed by those who served.
If it was put to us, I would think that it would be a resounding no.
A survey conducted by the Department of Premier and Cabinet asked whether the frontier conflicts between Indigenous people and early settlers should be reflected in Anzac Day ceremonies. 30% of people strongly agreed, 51% neither agreed nor disagreed, 19% strongly disagreed. The government says it often explores ways to involve more people on Anzac Day, but there will be no major changes to how it's commemorated.
Nothing's going to happen.
Veterans and their families are opposed to changes.
I think it should stay as it is. My father was a returned serviceman.
It'd have to take a lot of very thoughtful processing.
There probably is a time and place for it to be considered, but Anzac Day or Remembrance Day probably aren't the right ones.
Indigenous activists say it's important to find an appropriate time to recognise lives lost during settlement.
Obviously, I think people should be recognised in the frontier wars. Of course they should. You know, it's a war in itself. But I also want more recognition for the wars that followed after.
Despite the fact the research was conducted by the department rather than the government itself, the opposition says the Premier still has questions to answer.
Why would you even ask the question? What's wrong with it? Why did the Andrews Labor government constantly try and undermine the basic social fabric of Victoria and indeed the nation?
This is a portfolio that is bipartisan, and I really, really think it's shameful for Tim Smith for dragging it to the gutter.
Kieran Jones, 9 News.